Comprehensive summary: U.S. China Confrontation Network Information System Construction of History, Present and Future. 1. Historical development of U.S. China relations. The relationship between the United States and China has evolved through various phases since the establishment of the People's Republic of China (PRC) in 1949. Key milestones include 1949, the PRC is founded under Mao Zedong, leading to a complex relationship with the U.S. that initially supports the nationalist government in Taiwan. 1950, the Korean War begins with China backing North Korea against U.S.-led forces. 1971 to 1972, the Ping-Pong Diplomacy marks the beginning of thawing relations, culminating in President Nixon's historic visit to China. 1979, formal diplomatic relations are established with the U.S. recognizing the One China policy. 1990s, relations sour over human rights issues leading to fluctuating policies. 2001, China joins the World Trade Organization (WTO), deepening economic ties. 2018 to 2020, trade tensions escalate into a trade war under the Trump administration, characterized by tariffs and retaliatory measures. 2023, Presidents Biden and Xi need to stabilize relations after significant tensions. 2. Current dynamics and key issues. The U.S.-China relationship is marked by both competition and cooperation. Economic interdependence. Despite trade tensions, both economies are highly interconnected with mutual dependencies that impact global economic growth. Technological rivalry. Competition in technology, particularly in areas like artificial intelligence and semiconductors, plays a crucial role in bilateral tensions. Geopolitical tensions, issues surrounding Taiwan, the South China Sea, and military posturing create flashpoints that could escalate into conflict. Military balance. The evolving military capabilities of both nations raise concerns about stability and the risk of miscalculation leading to military confrontation. 3. Perspectives on future relations. Experts predict several potential scenarios for U.S.-China relations over the next decade. 1. Competitive coexistence. Both nations manage their rivalry while cooperating on global challenges like climate change and pandemics. 2. Détente. A return to a more stable and predictable relationship focusing on dialogue and limited cooperation despite underlying tensions. 3. Strategic competition. A continuation of the current adversarial posture, with each side working to constrain the other's influence without direct military confrontation. 4. Cold War dynamics. A scenario where relations deteriorate into a full-blown Cold War characterized by military buildups and ideological confrontation. 4. Network information system construction. Over the years, both nations have invested significantly in their network information systems, reflecting their respective strategic priorities. U.S. network information systems focused on maintaining technological superiority and cybersecurity, with initiatives aimed at countering Chinese influence in technology and telecommunications. China's digital strategy emphasizes the development of its digital economy, including the digital renminbi and state control of information flow to support the CCP's rule and international influence. 5. Global implications. The trajectory of U.S.-China relations will have profound implications for global order. Economic governance. The two superpowers' competition will shape global economic policies, influencing trade routes, standards, and practices. Security frameworks. Their military strategies and alliances will dictate security dynamics in Asia and beyond, affecting regional stability. Climate change and global health. Cooperation on mutual challenges like climate change and pandemics could serve as a foundation for improved relations, highlighting the interconnectedness of global issues. 6. Conclusion and future outlook. The future of U.S.-China relations remains uncertain, shaped by domestic politics, global economic conditions, and the willingness of both nations to engage in constructive dialogue. The potential for both confrontation and cooperation exists, depending on how each country navigates its internal challenges and external pressures. In summary, the U.S. China relationship is at a critical juncture with the potential for various outcomes based on historical patterns, current dynamics, and future decisions. Both countries must recognize their interdependence and the importance of collaboration on global challenges to avoid a catastrophic breakdown in relations. The complex and multifaceted relationship between the United States and China, particularly in the context of the confrontation between these two global powers, presents several counterintuitive insights that challenge conventional wisdom. Here are some notable points. 1. Economic interdependence versus competition. While the dominant narrative suggests that economic competition will lead to a breakdown in U.S. China relations, evidence shows that both economies are deeply interdependent. Researchers argue that economic ties can serve as a stabilizing factor, with mutual benefits possibly outweighing competitive dynamics. This contradicts the common belief that interdependence inherently makes countries vulnerable to exploitation or coercion. 2. Perceptions of threat. The U.S. framing of China as a significant threat overlooks the fact that many of China's actions are responses to perceived U.S. aggression and containment strategies. China's view of the U.S. as a global hegemon attempting to prevent its rise shapes its foreign policy. This perspective suggests that the escalation of tensions is not solely a result of China's ambitions but also of the U.S. actions that are framed as defensive but may be perceived as aggressive by Beijing. 3. Military posturing and stability. The belief that a robust military presence and capabilities prevent conflict is challenged by the idea that such posturing can actually incite tensions. Instead, a strategy focused on denial, whereby the U.S. military maintains a defensive posture aimed at deterring aggression without provoking an offensive response, could lead to greater stability. This highlights the paradox that sometimes less aggressive military strategies can engender a more peaceful coexistence. 4. Nuclear arms control. Despite underlying tensions, both countries share an interest in preventing nuclear conflict, particularly in the context of Taiwan. The notion that nuclear proliferation inevitably leads to war overlooks the potential for dialogue in arms control initiatives. The historical context indicates that states often engage in strategic dialogues to mitigate risks, suggesting that cooperation is possible even amid rivalry. 5. The global order and cooperation. The rise of China is often portrayed as a threat to the existing U.S.-led international order. However, the potential for a more multipolar global order where China plays a constructive role may lead to greater stability rather than chaos. This idea counters the assumption that the only path forward is one of confrontation, emphasizing that collaboration on global challenges can yield benefits for both nations. 6. Currency dynamics. The fear in the U.S. regarding the potential for the renminbi to replace the dollar as the global reserve currency does not fully account for the structural weaknesses within China's financial system. The notion that China seeks to supplant the dollar may be exaggerated, as its leaders appear more interested in enhancing the renminbi's role rather than outright replacement. This indicates a more nuanced understanding of global finance than the binary framing of dollar versus renminbi. 7. Informational statecraft. China's use of economic inducements and coercion in foreign relations often leads to backlash rather than compliance. The assumption that economic leverage will yield favorable outcomes is complicated by the reality that such tactics can undermine China's global standing and provoke stronger resistance from targeted countries. This suggests that more collaborative approaches may be more effective than coercive strategies. 8. Domestic politics and foreign policy. The intersection of domestic political dynamics and foreign relations is often overlooked. For instance, U.S. policymakers may react to internal pressures that amplify the perception of China as an adversary, potentially leading to policies that escalate tensions. This indicates that understanding domestic contexts is crucial for interpreting international relations, challenging the idea that foreign policy is solely a reflection of external conditions. 9. Taiwan as a flashpoint. The prevailing belief is that Taiwan will be the primary flashpoint for conflict between the U.S. and China. However, the historical context suggests that both powers have strong incentives to avoid military confrontation that could lead to catastrophic outcomes. This understanding can lead to more balanced approaches to managing Taiwan relations rather than framing it purely as a contentious issue. 10. Future scenarios. The potential for various future scenarios from competitive coexistence to a Cold War reveals that the trajectory of U.S. China relations is not predetermined. The belief that a new Cold War is inevitable overlooks the possibility of constructive engagement and cooperation on global issues, indicating that strategic choices made by leaders on both sides will be pivotal in shaping the future. These insights highlight the need for a more nuanced understanding of U.S.-China relations, moving beyond simplistic narratives of rivalry to recognize the complexities and interdependencies that characterize this critical global dynamic. The report on the U.S.-China confrontation, along with the historical context and future projections of their relationship, contains several significant details that are often overlooked. Yet they are crucial for understanding the broader implications of this complex dynamic. Key overlooked aspects and their significance. 1. Historical context of U.S.-China relations. Many analyses focus on current tensions without adequately contextualizing them within the historical trajectory of U.S.-China relations. The report highlights critical historical milestones such as the Ping-Pong Diplomacy of the early 1970s and the establishment of formal diplomatic relations in 1979. Understanding these events as part of a long continuum of interactions helps illuminate the cyclical nature of their relationship, where periods of cooperation often precede significant conflicts. This historical perspective is vital because it can inform future diplomatic strategies that recognize the potential for rapprochement after tensions. 2. Economic interdependence versus rivalry. The report underscores the paradox of economic interdependence between the U.S. and China, where both economies are deeply intertwined despite rising geopolitical tensions. This interdependence is often minimized in discussions that emphasize competition and conflict. The significance lies in recognizing that both nations benefit from economic ties. Thus, strategies that seek to decouple their economies may lead to unintended consequences, including economic instability that could affect global markets. This insight is crucial for policymakers who may overestimate the feasibility of a complete decoupling strategy without considering the economic ramifications. 3. Taiwan as a flashpoint. Taiwan is repeatedly identified as a crucial flashpoint in U.S.-China relations. The report articulates that any military confrontation over Taiwan could escalate into a broader conflict involving nuclear weapons. Drawing on the perspective that both nations have significant stakes in maintaining the status quo. The significance of this point cannot be understated. It highlights the need for robust crisis management mechanisms and communication channels to prevent miscalculations. The risk of misinterpretation during high-stress situations could lead to catastrophic outcomes, making it imperative that both sides invest in stabilizing measures. 4. Nuclear dynamics. The report discusses the evolving nuclear arsenals of both nations, noting that China is expected to significantly increase its stockpile. The nuances of nuclear deterrence and the potential for miscalculation in the event of conflict are often overshadowed by conventional military discussions. This aspect of the report emphasizes the importance of arms control dialogues, which could mitigate the risks associated with rapid nuclear proliferation. The historical context of U.S.-Soviet arms control efforts can serve as a model for future engagement between the U.S. and China, particularly in establishing norms and frameworks for nuclear stability. 5. Global financial system and currency dynamics. A critical yet often overlooked theme in the report is the future of the renminbi RMB and its role in the global monetary system. The discussions around the RMB's internationalization highlight that while there is concern over the dollar's dominance, the transition to a multipolar currency system is fraught with challenges. The significance of this point lies in the understanding that a stable, cooperative approach to currency dynamics could enhance global financial stability. Encouraging the RMB's role in the international system while maintaining the dollar's primacy could prevent the kind of economic fragmentation that exacerbates geopolitical tensions. 6. Domestic political factors. The interplay of domestic politics within both the U.S. and China is a crucial element that often gets sidelined. The report highlights how domestic concerns can drive foreign policy decisions, such as the bipartisan consensus in the U.S. to adopt a tougher stance on China. This aspect is significant because it suggests that leaders in both countries may face constraints that could complicate diplomatic efforts, especially in times of rising nationalism or populism. Understanding these domestic pressures can help in crafting messages that resonate with both domestic and international audiences, potentially easing tensions. 7. The role of third countries. The report points to the influence of third countries and their reactions to U.S. China tensions, particularly in the context of the Global South. This is significant because it underscores that the U.S. China rivalry is not an isolated issue, rather, it impacts and is impacted by the positions and interests of other nations. Engaging with these countries and understanding their perspectives can facilitate multilateral approaches to global challenges, allowing both superpowers to find common ground on issues such as climate change and trade. Conclusion. Overall, the report emphasizes that the U.S.-China relationship is complex and multifaceted, evolving through historical contexts, economic interdependence, nuclear dynamics, and domestic political landscapes. The overlooked aspects highlighted here are significant not only for scholars and policymakers but also for the general public, as they shape perceptions and guide future actions in a critical bilateral relationship that has implications for global stability and prosperity. Understanding these nuances can foster more informed discussions about the future trajectory of U.S.-China relations and the broader international order. 1. Historical context and evolution of U.S.-China relations. Understanding the historical backdrop of U.S.-China relations from the establishment of the People's Republic of China in 1949 to the present is crucial for analyzing the current confrontation. The timeline of significant events such as the Korean War, the establishment of diplomatic relations in 1979, and the more recent trade wars and military tensions surrounding Taiwan illustrates the complexities of the bilateral relationship. These events have shaped mutual perceptions and policies, making it essential to recognize their influence on contemporary dynamics. 2. Economic interdependence and strategic competition. The interwoven economic ties between the U.S. and China highlight a paradox of competition and cooperation. Despite high levels of economic rivalry, both nations are deeply reliant on one another for trade, investment, and supply chains. The implications of this interdependence are profound, as it not only influences their economic policies but also affects their strategic military postures. The ongoing push for decoupling in technology and trade, particularly in areas like semiconductors, reflects a significant shift in how both countries approach their economic relationship amid rising geopolitical tensions. 3. Military dynamics and risk of conflict. The evolving military balance in the Asia-Pacific region is a focal point of U.S.-China relations. The emphasis on military capabilities, particularly in the context of Taiwan, raises the stakes for potential conflict. The introduction of advanced military technologies by both sides, coupled with the strategic importance of crisis management mechanisms, underscores the critical need for effective communication channels to avert misunderstandings that could lead to military escalation. The possibility of a nuclear arms race adds another layer of complexity to this already fraught relationship. 4. Global implications and future scenarios. The U.S.-China confrontation is not only a bilateral issue but also has far-reaching implications for global order. Various scenarios ranging from competitive coexistence to a new Cold War reveal the potential paths forward. The interplay of domestic politics, global economic shifts, and the responses of third-party nations will significantly shape the future trajectory of U.S.-China relations. Engaging in cooperative frameworks to address shared global challenges such as climate change and pandemics could help mitigate tensions and foster a more stable international environment. 1. U.S.-Soviet rivalry during the Cold War. The confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union from the end of World War II until the early 1990s serves as a historical parallel to the current U.S.-China relations. The Cold War was characterized by ideological military and economic competition, with both superpowers seeking to expand their influence globally. Key events like the Cuban Missile Crisis 1962 and the arms race, including nuclear stockpiling, reflect the intense rivalry and the risks of miscalculation that mirror the current tensions between the U.S. and China over Taiwan and military advancements. 2. The Opium Wars 1839–1860. The Opium Wars between Great Britain and China highlight the complexities of foreign intervention and the struggles over trade and sovereignty. The wars were fueled by Britain's desire to trade opium for tea and silk, leading to significant conflicts that resulted in the Treaty of Nanking and other unequal treaties. These events shaped China's perceptions of foreign powers and their influence, similar to how contemporary China views U.S. actions in Asia as attempts to undermine its sovereignty and regional dominance. 3. The rise of Japan in the early 20th century. Japan's rapid industrialization and military expansion in the late 19th and early 20th centuries led to conflicts with Western powers and neighboring countries, culminating in the Second Sino-Japanese War and World War II. The tension between Japan and the U.S. over territorial expansion in Asia parallels the current U.S.-China dynamics, where both countries are vying for influence in the Asia-Pacific region. Japan's militarization and the eventual U.S. response through economic sanctions and military alliances serve as a precursor to the present-day strategic competition between the U.S. and China. Future outlook: predictions for the U.S.-China confrontation and network information system construction. Overview of U.S.-China relations. The relationship between the United States and China has evolved into one of the most complex and consequential bilateral dynamics in global politics. It has oscillated between periods of cooperation and confrontation, particularly in the realms of trade, military strategy, technology, and ideology. As we project into the future, several key trends and scenarios emerge that will shape the trajectory of this relationship and its impact on global order. Key factors influencing future relations. 1. Military strategy and arms control. The military balance of power in East Asia will continue to be a critical determinant of U.S.-China relations. Both nations are likely to expand their military capabilities, with China projected to grow its nuclear arsenal significantly by 2035, aiming for around 1,500 warheads. This escalation necessitates a robust dialogue on arms control to mitigate the risks of miscalculation and conflict, especially over Taiwan. 2. Economic interdependence. Despite rising tensions, the economic relationship remains deeply intertwined. Both countries depend on each other for trade and investment, which complicates the prospect of a complete decoupling. However, rising protectionism and strategic economic competition, particularly in technology sectors, will continue to define their economic interactions. 3. Technological competition. The technological arms race, particularly in artificial intelligence (AI) and semiconductor technology, will be pivotal. The U.S. has already implemented restrictions on technology exports to China, which is likely to spur further technological advancements in both countries. The race to establish standards and norms for emerging technologies could either lead to a bifurcation of global technology ecosystems or spur cooperative frameworks to manage these developments. 4. Global governance and climate change. As both countries face mounting pressure to address global challenges, particularly climate change, opportunities for cooperation may arise. A joint commitment to tackling global issues could serve as a stabilizing force in their bilateral relationship despite underlying tensions. Future scenarios. 1. Competitive coexistence. One potential outcome is a scenario where the U.S. and China manage to coexist with a degree of competition that does not escalate into open conflict. This would involve establishing norms and frameworks for managing their rivalry, particularly in economic and technological domains, while cooperating on global challenges like climate change and health crises. 2. détente and managed competition. Another scenario could involve a return to a form of détente where both nations recognize the need for stability and mutual restraint. This would require both sides to engage in more constructive dialogues about their military postures and to establish confidence-building measures to prevent escalation. 3. Cold War dynamics. If current trends continue unchecked, we could witness a return to a Cold War dynamic characterized by heightened military tensions, economic decoupling, and ideological rivalry. This scenario would involve both nations actively seeking to undermine each other's influence globally, leading to a bifurcation of international alliances and economic systems. For unintended conflict, the most concerning scenario is that of an inadvertent conflict, particularly over Taiwan. Miscalculations, misunderstandings, or domestic pressures could lead to military confrontations that spiral out of control, resulting in a major crisis affecting not only the U.S. and China but also their allies and the global economic system. The role of network information systems. As both nations navigate this complex relationship, the construction and management of network information systems will play a crucial role. The development of robust cybersecurity measures and advanced data management systems will be essential to protect national interests and maintain economic stability. 1. Cybersecurity and military communication. Improved cybersecurity protocols will be vital in safeguarding military communications and preventing espionage. The establishment of secure lines of communication between military leaders could help avert misunderstandings that might lead to conflict. 2. Information warfare and influence. Both countries will likely continue to engage in information warfare, seeking to influence public opinion domestically and internationally. The ability to manage narratives and counter disinformation will be crucial in shaping perceptions and maintaining legitimacy. 3. Global standards and cooperation. As technology becomes increasingly globalized, both nations will need to engage in dialogues about establishing international standards for data privacy, cybersecurity, and technology governance. Cooperation in these realms could mitigate the risks of technological decoupling and promote a more stable global order. Conclusion. The future of U.S. China relations will be shaped by the interplay of military strategy, economic interdependence, technological competition, and global governance. While the potential for conflict remains high, particularly over Taiwan, there are also pathways toward cooperation that could stabilize the relationship. The construction of network information systems will be a pivotal factor in navigating this complex landscape, offering both challenges and opportunities for both nations. Ultimately, the choices made by leaders in both Washington and Beijing will determine whether the future is characterized by confrontation or collaboration.